Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board, October 4th, 2022, 5 p.m. And we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please.
Scott Anderson, motion to approve.
Dave Bossy, second.
Motion's made by Scott Anderson, seconded by Dave Bossy to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, Mr. Brace?
Aye.
Mr. Payer?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Bossy?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Do we have Ginger on board?
Not yet.
Okay.
So far, we've got Tara and then, oh wait, there's Ginger.
Right. Draft minutes, September 20th, 2022. Has everybody had a chance to review them? Are there any revisions?
I have a revision addition to the green crab part. As I brought up about the distillery in New Hampshire is using green crabs as part of the process. I am going to pursue looking into that distillery aspect a little more, but just I would like that added.
Okay.
Any other revisions? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve tonight's minutes as revised.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. This is Ginger.
Thank you, Ginger. Do we have a second?
Second by Scott Anderson.
Motion's made by Ginger, seconded by Scott to approve the minutes of September 20th. All in favor, Mr. Brace?
Aye.
Mr. Payer?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Bossy?
Abstain.
And Ms. Andrews?
Aye.
Your vote's aye as well. Nothing under chairman's report tonight. Marine Department report. Sheila, please.
Okay. I'll just start out with telling you guys what we got done for the summer. So the lifeguards successfully guarded over 330,000 people on 10 guarded beaches and thousands more on unguarded beaches. We performed 179 rescues and assists. We provided preventative education to the public 30,000 times, survived 75 shark sightings. And as far as the dock staff, we did 600 hours of underway for recreational boating safety patrol, over 700 hours underway for pump outs, 26,000 gallons to date. We assisted 6 boats taking on water, responded to over 60 calls for assistance. We're still on the beaches on ATVs until Monday. But you know, weather dependent at this point. The dock staff is pretty much gone. Everybody went back to school. So we are starting the project at the town pier. Starts on I think the 17th. Is the date that we have to have everybody off the pier and ready to go. The first part of the project is going to be to extend that dog leg, which is going to come on another 100 feet, which should provide us really good protection for the floating dock and the fixed pier as well. It's also going to give us a few more slips. And then the second phase will be to replace the floating docks. As of right now, we have only one floating dock that needs to be repaired, but this weather is absolutely killing us because 6 days of the same direction in the same seas, it just tires the equipment out together with the Band-Aid as it is. So right now we're just walking up and down, crossing our fingers. We have had a lot of damage around the island with this blow. We have 3 boats like half sunk. We have 4 boats up on the beach. We have we got some damage out to the docks at our dock, the town docks at F Street. Minor, I think, you know, something we could quickly repair. We sustained some damage on our dinghy docks. So, but the problem is you got another 24 hours of this at least. So I'm just hoping that we get everything, just praying till we get through this. We still, all the ace navigation is still in the water. The intent is to leave the no wakes in, but that no wakes zone will be enforced year round. And I intend on meeting with the ferries again this year to remind them of that even when I haul the buoys out, the reason we're gonna haul the buoys out is if we get an icy winter, they're expensive and they'll go with the ice. So we'll haul it out, but we will enforce, and they are understanding that, and they did really good last winter when we spoke to them about it. Yeah, I mean, I think we were crazy busy all summer, but you know, I think we did a pretty good job, and the crews all worked super hard, but left pretty happy and felt pretty good about it. We were one of the only places that did not have a lifeguard issue. Most of the country was suffering through a problem and ended up having 160 applicants for 60 spots. Cool. So, and it's because they're recruiting within themselves, and they go back to school. And I think our recruiting efforts are really good. And so we're going to keep going with that again. You know, I'd say 70% of the kids that were here want to come back next year. So we'll just keep doing everything we can to keep improving the program. But yeah, the next biggest thing for us is just closing everything up, getting everything out of the water. The headhunter is done. I'm just waiting to get it on the ferry, but we still provide pump outs at the end of our pier. The boat basin still provide them at the end of their pier. We've been doing pretty well with that. DITAP program went really well. I can give you a number. I've meant to get a 4K, but I can give you a number of taps that we did hand out. Everybody was really good about it, and we pushed it out on social media quite a bit. So we intend to continue with that, because they've had other groups come and say that they want to help fund it, and as long as we do it, you know, and it's no trouble for us. We're out there all the time, anyways. So we just go boat to boat, hand them out. And the boat basin was really cooperative, as was Nantucket Moorings. So everybody's on board with it.
As the boat basin, I'm sure we'll handle anybody that would have normally been at the town pier. Since the pier will be closed.
Yeah. Yep.
Did they offer any, you know, any?
We haven't really talked about it yet.
No.
I'm more talking to her about posting our floating docks. So, okay. But yeah, I mean, all the guys pretty much know, and obviously I won't kick them till the last possible second, you know. And if the guys if they're working on the fixed pier and they say that they, you know, they don't care about the floating dock for another 2 weeks, then we'll leave them there as long as we possibly can. Their leases are up on September 30th anyway, so anytime they get after that is great.
Mm-hmm. Does the boat basin, will they be having construction again this year?
Yep, they'll be having construction again this year.
Which portion? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't.
They seem to be working their way from north to south.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Board members, questions for Sheila? Comments?
Oh, last thing, the lottery will be on the last Friday at noontime at 34 Washington Street. It's only for the 1-year slips this year. Last year we did both A and B. This year it's just B, which is a 1-year slip. So we 40 recreational slips and 5 commercial B slips.
Were there any incidents with boats running into the jetties?
Yeah, we had a few go up on the jetties this year, but operator error completely was the reason. The jetties both times that significant boats went up were well it was well exposed.
Mm.
It's just dark, unfamiliar.
Mm.
One boat came from Mattakix, it was a local,
Really
so.
bad. Mm.
There's a boat on the marsh. You're coming from Walwind, and you get that glimpse of Pulpus Harbor past Jane Lamb's house. It's the one that says Chaos Corner on it. So you're headed toward town, and then you can see the harbor. And way up in the marsh, there's a boat. It looked like the center console, maybe boat.
Okay, I'll go take a look at that. I did not know about that one.
It's hard. You wouldn't see it if you went to one of the two landings.
Because that's where we did go today to see what we had going on there.
And then there was something on at the end of Pulpus Harbor Road. That was underwater. It was like red. I don't know whether it was just a rowboat, just a skiff, but
Yeah, once the wind calms down, I can usually get a better idea when we cruise around by boat.
yeah.
And see what happened, but right now we're just doing it by vehicle just because it's not unavailable. Right
Sure. Yeah.
And how's all your equipment, your boats, all in?
Yeah.
Feeling good with
It's
your
good. I
equipment?
mean, we're trying to, like, I'm asking for a new engine, especially for the buoy boat. Buoy boat could use one. Problem is like there's a production backup, like everything else with, everybody blaming everything on COVID, but I believe them.
Yeah.
So we're in the queue for that. That engine owes us nothing. It's a 2007.
Wow.
And we've had it on 3 different boats.
Wow.
So
Nice.
we've been getting our money's worth. We take good care of our stuff, and could use that. We could use a new truck, but again, we ordered that, and that hasn't come through. So
Is your barn in full operation now?
No, that's still. I guess the problem with that is maybe some local contractors are like behind, and so our job just keeps getting pushed back. I would love to wish that would be available for this winter, but I don't think it's gonna be, because that's the perfect place to work on it.
Mm-hmm. But it's permitted and capable of groundbreaking.
Yeah,
no foundation
that
in.
way. That's not the problem. I think it's more getting people to get out there and get the job done. We needed to get some plumbing put in and some stuff like that, but hopefully it'll get there. I mean, don't mind working in the cold, but it's so much better if just the wind's not on you. Like where we've been working on those floating docks last 4 winters is like right there on Travel Lift Way, in the wind going down there is what killed you. We're all pretty tough and we can handle the cold. It's just wind on you.
Sure.
So even if we just had a shelter just to
Yeah.
knock the wind down.
And office building. What's the latest?
Yeah, I don't know. I know that they got the money and everything's been approved, and I know all that type of stuff has been done.
Contractor selected.
I don't know. I guess it was a problem with the architect. They haven't really shared all that with me. I just know that it's supposedly good to go when it's good to go. And but I said, should I stop moving stuff out? Because I wanted to stop moving stuff out. Well, I had a bunch of hands to help me stop moving stuff out, and they were like, "Don't stop that yet."
Okay. Is a temporary office prepared for you?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. You know what? I'll get better. I'll get you better numbers for the die tab, and I'll get you better info about the 2 buildings, like where we stand with those.
Okay. Thank you, Sheila.
You're welcome.
Nothing else from board members?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you just reach out to the member of the public whose screen name is E. Antoinetti. Could you respond to the chat on your screen asking you to give me your full name for the minutes?
There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
Natural Resources Report.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
So since it's been a while, I have a bit to report about the summer. So I'm just going to jump right in. So we had a lot of tours this summer. It was the first summer since COVID that we've been open to the public. We had around 400 people tour the hatchery from June to August on our regularly scheduled public tours. In addition, we also had the Nantucket Boys and Girls Club come through the hatchery during the week of their.
I'm sorry, Tara, let me just interrupt you just for a minute. Sheila has another engagement to make. I'd just like to ask the public if there's any comment on Marine Department report. Not seeing or hearing any. Sheila, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tara, forgive me for that.
Thank you.
Please continue.
Yeah, no worries. I was just saying that we had the Boys and Girls Club, which is the largest camp on the island for local kids, come through the hatchery during the entire 8 weeks of camp. We got each grade to come through and learn about what we were doing. And in addition, the kids that were too young to travel to the hatchery, we went to them at the Boys and Girls Club every week and brought lessons to them so that they didn't miss out on what we were doing either. They learned about the scallop fishery and scuba diving. We did some fun science crafts and brought touch tanks to them. We also had various interest groups come through the hatchery and other camps that inquired about tours via email that we fit into our schedule. So basically, nobody was turned away as far as tours go. So we were able to kind of have an open door policy, which was nice. For collaborations this summer, we worked with the Great Harbor Yacht Club's Youth Foundation and provided some of the young members and a few local island students with a week-long deep dive into what we do. We had about 7 to 10 kids help us for a week and learn the importance of our work. They also had required reading and a presentation to complete by the end of the week, which they presented at the Great Harbor Yacht Club. We worked with one of our former interns, Noah Singer, who is a new student for Boston University in their graduate program. He worked for the Land Council this summer and worked on a eelgrass project where we assisted him with harvesting, processing, and storing 300,000 eelgrass seeds for planting in Monomoy and also a site up in Fifth Bend. We were able to provide the divers, the boats, and the tank space to assist with the project. And in addition to the seed planting, Boston University students came down to assist NOAA in transplanting around 4,000 eelgrass plants into Fifth Bend as well. So that was fun. And a lot of those seeds are currently still in our tanks. And they're going to be planted out, next Monday and on the 17th. So that then we'll be able to shut our tanks down for the winter. We also worked with NSA and monitored the large scallop set in Mattocket Harbor. If you recall, it was a large seed set last year in the middle of Mattocket, and NSA decided to move a portion of the scallop seed to spread it out. And so what we did is when they moved the seed, we GPSed it, and then we monitored it throughout the summer. Each month we went and we either scuba dived or snorkeled, collected scallops, looked overall the entire area to monitor for health and growth and survival rates. And basically the results for that are that the moves were successful as far as survival rates go. I don't think there was a lot of mortality associated with it. So there are good reasons to move seed. As far as growth of the seed that was moved, it remained relatively the same as the scallops that weren't moved. So, you know, I think there's some strategies that we can employ based on the reason it is that we're moving the seed. You know, if we're moving it to get out of harm's way, if it's going to get stranded, or if we're moving it because we want to create spawning populations in different areas. I think the move that we did was successful for those reasons. But if we're moving it to improve growth rates of, you know, the population, then I think there's some different strategies that we need to employ and some different care that we need to give while the seed is being moved, as far as like, you know, taking time to spread it out more and that sort of thing. The reason being is because all of the scallops in Mattakit are really thick and dense, which is great for, you know, people just wanting to harvest scallops. But if you look at the details of it, we opened up a bushel in, let's see, it was probably a month ago. We harvested a bushel and it was around 4.5 pounds per bushel. So that's really low. And that's indicative of just how dense the population is and how much they were competing for food throughout the summer. So there's that, but it was a good effort. And, you know, I think that it's something that we need to look at if we continue to do that in the future. All right, so events that NRD worked this summer, we worked the Cisco Trashing Show and the NSA Oyster Fest. From an educational standpoint, we gave talks, the Land Council State of the Harbor event, and then the Great Harbor Yacht Club also hosted a smaller State of the Fishery event, which we gave talks at as well. So the hatchery we shut down in August, and we've moved our focus to, you know, the field. So surveying shellfish stocks, habitat, and making plans for the fishery season. Our production numbers are still under evaluation, but the hatchery did hit its yearly production goal, and we were able to expand on various types of stock enhancement for bay scallops. Our release sites for this year were in Second Bend, Shimo Bend, and Fourth Bend. We grew out a certain amount of post-set bay scallops, which means when we release larvae, they're like 10 to 14 days old, but we also grew out a certain number of scallops from each spawn that we conducted this year. So we would set those in the hatchery and grow them to a larger size, and then continue growing them in spat bags out in the harbor till they're about usually dime sized or quarter sized. And then we brought those back to the hatchery, counted them, processed them, and then all of those went into Third Bend. So that was a really good strategy to get scallops to a larger amount. And so we're still kind of refining that process and trying to figure out how we can improve on that, because that's a lot easier to quantify than releasing larvae into the harbor. Quahogs this year, we grew, that was our first spawn of the season. We grew them in our outdoor flow through system. We're currently holding a portion of them. We're going to stock them out probably on Friday. We already put some out around Fulling Mill, Pocono Point, and Monomoy. And we're trying to target areas that are accessible from land and away from the main mooring field, so that, you know, we can avoid some of the closures that we've been having. The remaining clams that we have in our system are going to go out to Mattakit on Friday. And so one of the things we do to monitor the natural spawns is we put out spat bags every season, every 2 weeks throughout May through the end of October. And what that does is, you know, a certain amount of the natural spawns and scallops will settle on these bags that are floating in the harbor. And it's a way for us to monitor what is naturally going on in the harbor as far as spawns and recruitment go. It's also a way for us to monitor some of our research. If we do larval releases, we use these spat bags as well. The hot spot for this year for recruitment in Mattakit was Little Neck. So there's a lot of seed over there. And also in Nantucket Harbor, the hot spots remain up in the head of the harbor. It's just kind of, you know, where everything accumulates just due to circulation patterns. So what we've been doing is collecting all of the spat that recruits up there in the bags, bringing it back to the hatchery, counting it, processing, and then putting it in different locations throughout Nantucket Harbor. On Friday, we just finished our 2 weeks of dive surveys for Nantucket Harbor. So that includes, we did 39 sites for that survey, and then we did an additional 10 sites for the hatchery. But what that does is they're underwater dive surveys. We've done them since 2006. They look at habitat, shellfish stocks, and sediment changes over time. This survey is really essential to identify trends and changes over time for management of the fishery and the habitat, and for planning large-scale projects such as dredging and sediment transport. So the results so far, these take a while to process and analyze everything and compare it to previous years. But since we were obviously the ones doing the dives and underwater, you know, you get a sneak peek at kind of what's going on. And so some preliminary, you know, observations include that there's a ton of seed all along the South Shore, mainly off of the field station and Foaling Mill. I anticipate that that seed is going to have to be moved very soon. It's right kind of on the perimeter of where the eelgrass meets the sand that goes to shore. So it's not that it's close into shore, but it's that the eelgrass is very short there. So the holding capacity is very low. And so I anticipate that will be, you know, pretty vulnerable to strandings. We were out there on Friday checking it out, and I'm interested to get back in and check it out after this wind and see, you know, if anything has changed. But it's something that we need to talk to NSA about and get some people in the water and moving some seed probably pretty soon before we get some more storms. As far as adults go, they were most abundant. Again, these are just like, these surveys are a snapshot of the harbor at, you know, basically 40 different sites. So it's not, you know, saying that, you know, this is the only place where there's seed or adults, but during our surveys, the adults were most abundant in Fourth Bend, Second Bend, and kind of along that spit between Fourth Bend and Fifth Bend, just off of Pocomo. The Lingbia, which is a macroalgae, an invasive algae, appeared to be lighter and absent in a lot of the spots that we have recorded it before, which was great to see. It was present in some new areas, so that part of the analysis will be really interesting to kind of tease out what's going on in the areas where it disappeared from and the areas where it has newly appeared. So those were the surveys. Now on to opening day of the fishery. Started October 1st for bay scalloping. The weather has been, as you know, pretty crappy. Wind has not been favorable for pleasant scalloping, but despite that, people have been going out. We started a volunteer monitoring program in Mattakit to try and get an idea and gauge what is coming out of Mattakit, just because there are so many scallops in that area. And we used to be able, when you got your recreational permit, you would fill out a form that said, you know, basically what you harvested the previous year. And when the permitting went to the police station, that form disappeared and kind of went away. So we have no way to gauge what people are harvesting from a recreational standpoint. So we are putting something in place for that for the next season when you go to apply for your permit. But for right now, we are depending on volunteers and our staff to kind of at least for the month of October and part of November to help us get that information during low tide of what's coming out of Mattakit. Most of the seed is in the middle of Mattakit on the other side of the channel, but it is accessible if you know how to get there. And, you know, I think if you can get there either by boat or using your waders, you can get a bushel in 20 minutes. As far as like, you know, scallops and other areas of Mattakit, I think it's going to take a little bit longer, but there is stuff closer into shore that was moved by NSA and also stuff that is there naturally. And then I think that's it for right now. I know that was a lot of information. You know, right now is the time of year where we're closing everything down and we're kind of going through our reports and getting all our information together and assembling it so that we can make sense of it. We have a lot of meetings. We're working on the harbor plan implementation committee and basically the formation of the revision committee. I think we requested that one of the SHAB members volunteer for that. But we have had about 3 preliminary meetings with the company that is helping us revise that plan. And we've had some good talks about the past harbor plan. We met with Sarah Octay, who has played a huge role in drafting the last one. And so we met with her to kind of go through the matrix from the last one and see where we're heading. Coastal resilience was not even mentioned in the previous plan. So there's a lot of updates that need to happen and be modernized with, you know, what's currently going on Nantucket. So that's a lot of like where focus is heading. Our water quality position, Thais, she's out on maternity leave. So we've been filling in and doing a lot of the water quality sampling for her, which includes getting ready to open the ponds in a few weeks and making sure the samples and the tide gauges are in place for that to monitor the drop in the ponds. So we've been kind of all over the island and all over the place. But if you have any questions, I'll try my best to answer them. Our department has gotten very broad in their reach as far as, you know, what we're involved in. So I don't have answers to all of the questions and all of the projects that we're involved in, but I can find out the answers if you ask them or you want to email me. But I'm happy to hear any questions and try my best to answer.
Thank you, Tara. Board members?
Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Brace?
So in the springtime, Tara, you guys were, well, with the help of the Shellfish Association, of course, moving seed from the cache in Mattakit to various places. But at some point, you guys had to stop. And so I'm just wondering how much was left in there, and I'm just looking at wondering the fate of those scallops. Are they all crushed down on each other and not survive, or they get scattered around, or could you go in there and move more?
I think, so NSA was able to move 1,000 bushels in 2 weeks. And it was 2 weeks that NSA funded, you know, paid the scallopers to help do that. And it wasn't a function of the money running out or anything like that. It was a function of people just becoming exhausted by the effort, because there were so many scallops to move and it was such a big task. The scallops that were left, you know, continued obviously to be dense. Some of them did get silted over, but all in all, from everything that we've surveyed and done out there, I think everything looks good. I don't think things grew very well out there, you know, just because they're so dense and they're competing for food and that sort of thing. It's just, you know, but there were not any mass die-offs or anything like that. You know, I don't know what you do about that. You know, people are going to be very happy that there's scallops to get, but they're also going to complain because the weights are so small and the meats are small. So, you know, from a biological standpoint, you know, I was happy to see the scallops because I think it's good for spawning and recruitment and creating more scallops. But from a fishery standpoint, they're easy to get, but I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see for commercial season. I don't think recreational people care as much. They're just gonna be happy they can get them. But commercially, it will be interesting to see if the guys, what they have to say about it.
I think that, I mean,
Mr. Chairman?
Oh,
sorry, Peter.
I still have a couple more things. Sorry, Ginger. I would think that, after last season, people would be happy just to get some scallops. And if they're small, they're small. And, you and the Shellfish hatchery and the scallopers and the Shellfish Association, you've done an amazing job to get scallops back into areas where they can grow. That scallopers can complain. They can come complain to us, but you did what you could. I just had two other things. So do you anticipate moving seed from, in front of the field station and quays before the scallop season or the commercial season?
I think personally, I think it needs to happen before the commercial season, but most guys probably don't have their boats in the water, or maybe they're going to be in Mattakit this year. So I'm going to meet with Sam from NSA and talk to her about it. Maybe it will happen in November, the first week when that people have their boats in the water and they can, go scalloping in the morning, get their catch, and then maybe they can come out and move seed for an hour or something like that. I just don't know where people are at with that and how many people are going to be in Nantucket Harbor this year, but it's something, how the winds go in November and the end of October. So it's just a matter of time. And I much rather move them now than pick them up off the beach.
And then just one more thing, you kind of touched on it a little bit. Do you foresee a stranding for the wind we've had for basically the last 5 days? And if so,
I definitely think about like the direction and where the strandings could occur, where the scallops could end up, and we were talking about Pimneys and Abrams and that sort of thing, but based on the surveys and everything, I wasn't too concerned about this wind, but I am concerned if it changes direction and blows for 3 more days or something like that. That would be pretty bad.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So
Ginger.
thank you. Yeah, I think it's really great that there was so much in Mattakit, and obviously I guess the competition for food is an obvious thing to look at. I was wondering if there was anything possibly like water temperature that might have affected things, and if you monitored that, or if you observed any changes, because we did have a very long, unusually hot spell in July, and I didn't know if the water temperature where it's shallow might have reflected that.
Yeah, we did monitor the water temperatures. They are, different. They can be very different in Mattakit Harbor. Just for an example, Eel Point tends to be a lot cooler than, areas closer to Hither Creek and inshore. I didn't really notice anything different as far as growth rates in all of those areas, but it is something to consider. I think like doing some, just some simple studies of putting scallops in different areas of the harbor and seeing where they grow best at like a normal density, so that we know, if we do want to move them for growth reasons, where a good place would be. We monitored the water temperature because of what's going on in Peconic Bay, where they're having mass die-offs of scallops at the higher temperatures in the summer. And it's something that I worry about, but we didn't, I think the highest recorded temperature we had in Mattakit was 78, but I did not see any mass die-offs or see anything like that during our later surveys that we did. we moved stuff out to Tuckernuck, which we only made it out there once. And obviously that's like a completely different animal out there, but stuff did grow very well, but it was very hard to find because the eelgrass was so thick there. But yeah, those are all important things to consider with the temperature and the food. I think in general, there was a lot of weird things going on this year. Nantucket Harbor seemed very, very clear the entire summer. Although things were growing, it just seemed like there wasn't a ton of food in the water, which I thought was like pretty odd. It was probably maybe related to rain that we had and nutrients going in the water.
Wow. Well, thank you, Tara.
Yep.
Board members?
Did the FDA ever show up?
The FDA did not show up. I don't know if I talked to you guys about the sampling problem that we had with the DMF when they came out. They did the sampling in the mooring fields and at the hatchery because we're trying to change the lines on those so that, you know, you can go clamming year round. Also the hatchery being an improved area. And they showed up and did sampling in a very erratic way and didn't take temperature samples with the fecal coliform samples, and they ended up failing our hatchery, and we had a huge problem with it, of course, and called them on it, and they agreed that they needed to come back and resample. But it really just like, I lost all my confidence in what they're trying to do or if they're even trying to help us. So, you know, it's a constant thing that we're trying to have a conversation with the DMF. And then, you know, the DMF is kind of the next tier before the FDA. So, you know, it's a tricky relationship. But yes, I think the FDA did not come down and take a look at what we were doing.
Tara, what is the temperature threshold for scallop die-off that would concern you? I mean, go ahead.
I think anything, I mean, it's not uncommon that we hit 78 in the head of the harbor. And sometimes I think that we've even gone higher, like 80. But I think it's just like the prolonged time at a temperature greater than 78 is something that I would worry about.
Okay. And when the eelgrass does its natural thinning process, so to speak, and you see a lot of eelgrass wash up with root system attached onto the beaches, is that eelgrass worthy of being collected and replanted?
Absolutely. I mean, if the temperatures are right and you can collect it, according to the eelgrass people we've been working with, you have like 48 hours before it needs to be back in the water and planted. And it needs to be kept either in like a flow through tank or it needs to be kept cool. So it doesn't start to degrade. I think this time of year with the wind, you see a lot more eelgrass kind of uproot, but you also, this is the time of year where people are taking their boats and the moorings out. So you also see more of that on shore. And just from these surveys, the amount of, I would say, dead eelgrass and rackline that we came across, like even in the middle of the harbor, it was so thick. So, you know, seeing that sort of thing wash up, like I don't know how old that eelgrass is, but I was surprised to see it in the middle of the harbor. And I'm always concerned when I see it on shore, but now, you know, I know that it's already in the harbor and it's probably just been sitting there for a long time. So when it washes up, I might not be as concerned, but definitely when you see the fresh green and the roots, that's something that is concerning.
I was just curious, if kind of like a seed stranding program, if boots happen to be on the ground in an area and you notice, if it's noticed by somebody, if it's worth giving a call and trying to trying to salvage some of it to be replanted. It usually happens every August. And,
yeah, I think if you can get in the water, you know, before the end of October, because this is October 17th is the last time that the eelgrass team is coming out. And just from personal experience, I know that, you know, if you don't have a dry suit on, you know, you're kind of approaching the threshold of being comfortable in the water. So I think like there's a limitation to, you know, the stuff that washes up in the winter, you just don't have the staff to deal with it.
Has the department rigged a scallop boat?
We have a scallop boat. It is not rigged. We have a lot of the parts for hauling dredges that just need to be installed. But that is a situation that we are trying to address, because obviously we do have a staff member that knows how to do that sort of thing. And we're just trying to work that into the schedule so that we can be independent and move seed on our own without depending on NSA to do that.
All right, and one last question from me. Just curious if you've worked on a spat bag gear redesign, considering the leatherback incident.
We have not worked on a redesign. We did talk to the turtle entanglement specialist from NOAA, and she said that she felt like having a turtle in the harbor is not very common. And she said currently there isn't any recommendations except for, I mean, we did talk about a few things, but there's nothing like a breakaway would not work for a turtle like it works for a whale with a lobster gear. You know, we had talked about wrapping our line with vinyl hose on some of the longer lines that we have, and that could be one thing to help prevent entanglement. But she really didn't seem that concerned about our situation and what we were doing, and that, you know, of course we don't want to be entangling turtles and causing problems with our gear. So, you know, if they had told us that there was absolutely something that we needed to do, then we would do it. But for right now, they didn't seem that concerned with the situation. So we just kind of consider ourselves lucky that the turtle was rescued. And, you know, we're out there almost every day, you know, checking on things and stuff like that. And we're lucky that the public is, you know, keeping an eye on it too, so that we can respond in a timely way for that.
Well, that's good. You were in full communication in response to it. So that's wonderful. Certainly seeing that footage had to be heartbreaking for you as well, I'm sure. And definitely agree with it being a very isolated incident. So in my years on the harbor, I've never seen a turtle in the harbor either. So, and like you say, having other eyes out there is good as well. So thank you for sharing that, Tara. Board members, any other questions for Natural Resources? All right, public comment for Natural Resources, if any. Unmute yourself if you wish to speak. Not seeing any, we will move forward to old business. Green crabs. Something new, Mr. Anderson?
Nothing new. I'm still looking into the whiskey aspect.
I'd like to make a recommendation to take that out of old business. I'd like to move that into the harbors, because I've just started to look at this, and this is really a big deal in terms of eating shellfish, eating and cutting grass. We've got another thing I'd like to add to that is conch. I'm just starting to look at that, the different kinds of conch that eat the meat eaters and the grass eaters. And anyway, I thought it really is the health of the harbor. So okay. I just kind of like to shift them and maybe add conchs to that, if that's okay with you. In general, things that are doing damage to our harbors besides humans.
Tara, are you still with us? Yes.
Yep.
Has anybody been actively conch fishing?
No one has been actively conch fishing, although from personal communication, I think that is going to be restarted again.
Okay.
At least from Matt is interested in doing it. I know he uses green crabs for his bait. It hasn't been locally sourced green crabs in the past. So, you know, there's an opportunity there, but also I do know that green crabs should be, some sort of management plan should be written into our harbor plan. So that's something that can be discussed moving forward.
Good. Thank you, Tara.
I have one other comment about
Mr. Anderson.
About the green crab aspect. They don't just eat the eelgrass, they devour shellfish.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
that's almost the scary part, because all the
Yeah.
fat and everything will get devoured.
Right.
Not only do they chew it, but they somehow take it through their gills. So they don't even have to like chew it. It's just like filtering through them.
Wow. Interesting.
I was interested in how many conch shells I see going down the harbor side that are beautiful. And they're obviously new. I mean, they obviously haven't been rolling around the bottom and getting beat up on the shore for a while. So there's got to be quite a number of conch out there.
Part of our survey that we do yearly does include knobbed and channeled whelk as well. It's the only other shellfish that's included into the benthic survey.
And what are you noticing for population?
I mean, most of Nantucket Harbor has a channeled whelk population, whereas Mattocket has a knobbed whelk population. That's part of the analysis that, you know, needs to be compared and come out, because it is a snapshot. A lot of the dives that we do aren't necessarily in areas where the conch hang out. They tend to like the ledges and some of the deeper water.
How about starfish?
Lots of brittle stars. Something interesting, sorry to like go into this real quick, but there were a ton of juvenile black sea bass, and in their guts were tiny scallop seed.
Wow.
Ooh.
Interesting.
I've never seen that many juvenile black sea bass in the harbor. They're everywhere.
Wow. Very interesting. Okay, because back in the 70s and 80s, starfish, I can remember seeing starfish come in with half bushel baskets full of starfish, which are a predator to the scallop as well. And back in those days, the conch was on the predator list, and scallopers, whenever a conch came up in the dredge, they'd break the shell on a cleat on board and toss it back overboard, which I believe would end up killing the fish. But it's nice that there's a market for them, and it's nice to hear that somebody will be actively fishing again for them. Certainly a better way to get rid of them, to take them out and have them processed into a food than to simply eradicate. So if there's nothing else on green crabs, we'll move into health of the harbors, the Clean Water Coalition discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Brace.
I spoke to Emily Molden at your behest and basically reported to her that we felt that we should not be an official part of that group. And then I noted that in the list of groups that have been reported in the media that we weren't included, as well as the Natural Resources Department not included. And she said that was intentional.
Okay.
But she wants us to be involved, but that they are trying to, I guess, come up with the things that they're going to focus on, basically. And when they need us, they'll come to us. And they would like to maybe come here and present. But, you know, of course they want to support, but they don't need us on their committee.
Wonderful. Anything else from the board on the Clean Water Coalition?
Committee here, Clean Water Coalition, Clean Water Coalition. It's bringing together all of the organizations that are working on trying to boost our water quality around the island. Okay, brand new.
Anybody else? moving forward, stormwater runoff and harbor impacts.
Chairman, I'm gonna volunteer to track that with the town, you know, where the town's going with that. So I'll keep on top of that.
Thank you. Gosh, that's wonderful, Dave.
And
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Brace.
since we really don't have this on the agenda, but that stormwater runoff and harbor impacts is part of it. I submitted the quarterly report to the select board today.
Mhm.
And Libby Gibson got back to me and said, thank you so much. And this looks really helpful. So just let you know that
Good.
our work, that was a good idea of all of us.
Great, good to hear. Thank you for doing that, Peter.
And I'm sorry, Tara, if you didn't know, we decided to do calendar year quarterly reports and send them to the select board to just sort of keep them abreast of what we're doing, so they're not in the dark. So that if we do an advisory, if we do our jobs and send an advisory to them, that they'll be prepared. So if you want, we can send that to you, and I guess I'll send it to Sheila.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else? Stormwater runoff and harbor impacts. I think every time we get rain like this, I discovered another street puddling over that I don't remember seeing it puddling over before. It's got a lot of infill development with no stormwater runoff or drainage system included in these developed lots, and it's just more ending up in our streets, which a lot of the streets go straight into the harbor. So hopefully something positive comes from this. It's long overdue. And thank you, Mr. Bossy, for keeping track of it for us. If there's nothing else, we'll move forward to excessive lawn fertilizer use. Any updates, discussion, or new information? Keeping this in here, simply health of the harbor issue. If there's something new, any great idea somebody has to encourage people to use more environmentally friendly, that would be wonderful. Miss Andrews, please.
Oh, yeah. Well, we were talking about increasing, native plant lawn cover. And I seem to recollect that the Land Council had a nice list of, native landscape things to encourage native plantings. I think I got it. I'm not sure where I stashed it, but it's sort of preaching to the choir in a way. So I was thinking we should maybe think about how to get some of the information that already exists more widely out there.
Mm-hmm. Good idea. All right. Maybe social media. Thank you, Ginger. Board members, any more discussion for excessive lawn fertilizer use? Thoughts, ideas? FDA shellfish taking prohibition in the mooring fields. Is this supposed to be under old business?
I think it probably should be.
We've always had it in health of the harbor.
All right. And is there anything new on this?
We had Tara tell us about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell us nothing new.
Right.
So does that mean it remains closed, seeing as they didn't show up?
Well, it opened. When do they open back up automatically? The
I think it opened
15th, wasn't
it? It was, yeah, it might have been September 15th or September 1st. I'll have to check and see on that one. But yeah, everything's open for scalloping regardless of any closures that take place. So, but the clamming in the mooring field is open.
Oh, good.
Tara, while you're on quickly, there's a lot of, it seems like a lot of oysters are living freely, but near where oyster farmers have their cages. I had just had a question from somebody who'd been walking the beach and ended up picking up some oysters and enjoying them at home, but they were concerned if they would could possibly get in trouble by any of the farmers for picking up these freely oysters living in the shallows outside of the cages.
If it's not on the official oyster lease, they cannot get in trouble as long as the oysters are the minimum harvest size, which is 3 inches. They can't take anything. The one thing I would caution about that some people do is that if people buy oysters from like a retail establishment and they don't get to them, like they sit in the fridge for a while, people do dump their oysters in the shallows of different harbors. I've seen piles of them in Mattakit and places they don't make sense. And I would never take those oysters because I don't know how long they have been out of the water or have been in the water. And I think that's like a disease problem waiting to happen.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Can I ask one more question, Sarah, about that? So on the shellfish license, the piece of paper you used to get says that oysters are part of that. You
Right.
get a shellfish license and you can take oysters. So should that your comments be qualified that someone who's picking up oysters that have gone rogue out of someone's farm, should they have their license to be able to do that?
Of course, you need a recreational license to be able to do that. And I know that one of the oyster farmers over in Pocomo does free planting. And a lot of those oysters, especially when they're small, are subject to some tides and winds and wave actions. And sometimes those bags or the free planted oysters do end up in areas that are not on the lease. I mean, I found, full bags and quays before of stuff that just has gone missing. And usually what we do is we'll call the farmers and let them know that we found some bags. And if they want them, they can come get them. And if they don't, then they're either confiscated or, if someone else finds them and they're harvestable, they'll take them home and eat them.
Thank you, Tara. Anything else in health of the harbors that the board would like to discuss? We'll move forward to new business. Coastal Resilience Advisory Board. Do we have an update, Mr. Brace?
Yes, so for our last meeting, which was September 27th, Vince Murphy, the coastal coordinator, we may have a different title now, announced us that we did not get the Massachusetts Office of Coastal Zone Management grant that we wanted to do the feasibility study for the protective berm that was going to run, that is in plan to run from like Francis Street pretty much all the way through town. So we're gonna look at other options for that grant. That is not a grant to pay for the berm to be built. It's a feasibility study. Make sure everybody gets that. We did a discussion of the climate action plan, the history of it. Sustainable Nantucket proposed that and got the select board to sign on and say, yes, we need to do this. And it was created. Now, now there's an effort to redo that, to revise it, to bring it up to modern, up to 22 standards, and have it mesh with the current coastal resilience plan. We get an update from Vincent on coastal projects that are being pursued now. I guess Vincent called them quick projects. Projects like raising the road at, potentially raising the road or doing a bridge at between Folters Marsh, the south side and the north side, raising the road starting before First Bridge and going all the way to Second Bridge, and then dealing with Millie's Bridge. All of those things are going to happen in the near term. So he was updating us on that. That's pretty much it that I got for. Oh, and I told in that meeting, whenever we meet, then one of the things that's on regular business is updates from the various people who represent the boards that are on the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee. So my report was that we're doing these quarterly reports, and Vincent said he'd like to have the report sent to him.
Great.
So that's it.
Thank you, Peter. And I'll just add that the Shellfish Association has not met since our last meeting. The next NSA meeting is next Tuesday at 5:15. So I'll have an update of what's happening at the NSA at our next meeting. Public questions or comments? Anything the board would like to add to our agenda for the next meeting, or anything you'd like to review of tonight's meeting?
This Vince Murphy we talked about here.
Yep.
Is he the one involved with oyster reefs?
No. Vince is the coastal coordinator. He's all about guiding the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee, for which this board, I'm a representative. I'm on that committee. So he's all about enacting the recommendations, the 40 recommendations in that plan, and guiding us. So the people you should speak with about the oyster reef in Pulpus Harbor is Tara Riley, who's
that girl.
Yep, and also the Nantucket Conservation Foundation. And so you understand the Conservation Foundation is a private entity that owns about 9,500 acres in the island.
Oh.
The Nantucket Conservation Commission is the regulatory commission that regulates and protects our wetlands for the town. So you would find a person there at the Conservation Foundation named Jen Carberg. She's sort of the person that was leading that project, and also the person who is all about oysters in addition to Miss Riley is Leah Cabral, or it's Leah Hill now. Am I right in all that, Tara?
Thank you.
You're correct.
I guess everybody's heard of this glacier. I think it's in the Antarctic South Pole, the size of Florida, that's about to break off and raise sea level 2 feet. I can't quite believe that, but that's quite a bit. And then attached to it are other parts of glaciers that will begin to crumble. So this whole thing about rising sea levels may accelerate faster than people anticipated.
Undoubtedly.
And I think if there's any hope in building oyster reefs to come back, that we better get about it.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard that. I'll have to look that up. Florida-sized.
If you got a Florida-sized glacier, it'll pop up.
Wow. Amazing. Okay. If there's nothing else, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Before doing so, I'll just announce that our next meeting is October 18th, and after that, November 1st.
I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, 2 seconds.
The motion's been made by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Payer to adjourn tonight's meeting. All in favor, Mr. Brace?
Aye.
Ms. Andrews?
Aye.
I'm Mr. Payer.
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Bossy?
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. Good night, everybody. Thank you, Tara.
Thanks, Tara.
Thanks, Tara.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Ginger.
Has everybody read the book On the Beach